I'm Lee Odden, and this is What the Speak podcast.
What the Speak, episode 46. Surrey, make me laugh.
Let me think. Nope, can't think of one.
Do you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch? If not, these expert discussions and insider tips can help you right now, today. Welcome to the What the Speak podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly.
If you don't speak with passion and clarity while inspiring confidence, I'll walk you through an approach I've used to generate over 7 figures in revenue and quadruple my income. Join me live on March 20th for the Presentation Profit Formula, a free training I've created to help increase your income, authority, and influence through better communication. Here's what you'll learn in this action-packed training. First, I'll talk about my 5 P's of a perfect presentation that converts your audience into sales. Next, we'll uncover simple techniques to boost confidence and reduce filler words like and ah. Lastly, we'll look at how to create a sexy presentation that builds instant credibility and positions you as the authority in your field. This stuff is so good, I should probably charge a few $100s for it, but since you're a subscriber, I want to hook you up. If you're finally ready to realize your full potential and become a better communicator, go to whatthespeak.com/formula. Make sure to sign up, and I'll see you there. Lee Odden, are you ready to answer the question, what the speak?
Yes, I am, Brian. Let's roll.
All right. I love the enthusiasm, Lee. So, Lee, I know that you are the CEO of a digital marketing agency called Top Rank Online Marketing. Plus, you're the author you're an author of a fantastic book. What is it called? Optimize?
That's true.
Yes. And you're a sought-after keynote speaker. But I would love to hear it directly from you. Can you briefly tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, I am the CEO of Top Rank Online Marketing. We are a digital marketing agency based in Minneapolis, or outside of Minneapolis, actually.
Cold.
Lake Minnetonka. Yeah, it is very frozen. I was just looking at a screenshot I had taken of negative 27 Fahrenheit without wind chill. So it gets a little chilly, but that gives us lots of time to develop our speaking skills and our marketing skills.
Love it.
As an agency, we serve companies like Dell, LinkedIn, McKesson, and some consumer brands with mostly content-oriented services, content marketing, and integrated with search and social, public relations, email, and really kind of a full-service integrated agency, but very focused on B2B companies for the most part. Part of what I do for our company, outside of regular CEO roles, is to evangelize the brand. I am our marketing, and I accomplish that through a combination of written content, blogging, which I've been doing for about 10 years now, and speaking at conferences. That's really the combination of online to offline magic, really, that's been instrumental for us.
Great. Now, real simply, can you break it down? What are usually the topics that you're speaking about when you go out to different events or industry conferences where you're speaking? If I were to pick up the phone and call you and say, Lee, we'd love to come and have you speak, what would you talk about?
Well, it depends on the situation, really. Sometimes I'll get approached. I get approached often from conferences or events. They're private. I'll segment it this way. There are industry conferences where it makes sense for me to have visibility, and there I'll make suggestions, and that's really the answer to your question. It'll be a content-oriented situation. Like I go to a public relations conference, I'm a content and search guy. When I go to a content conference, often I'm a PR or a search guy. So I'm making an effort to stand out, obviously, amongst lots of competitors with a unique angle. At how someone can use an integrated approach to solve their business problems. At the same time as conferences, though, I'm doing a lot of private events for companies. Mm-hmm. So they've got a problem they want solved from an industry expert, someone from outside of the family to come in and validate or introduce thought leadership topics, things that will reinforce the direction of the company strategically. So that can be, how to use influencer marketing, or talking with executives on how can an executive manage day-to-day social, very few skills at the moment and very few resources, very little time. How can they do the stuff that I'm doing to achieve a network of over 300,000 people?
Yeah.
Because no one's helping me do that on a day-to-day basis, really.
Interesting. Well, good. All right. Well, let's dig into a little bit about your history or your origin story as a speaker. So
Sure.
it sounds like you've been blogging for 10 years, which, that is quite a long time. 10 years ago, there were still a number of people who didn't even know what a blog was. Did it start there with you? Is that kind of the beginning point, or further back in the history of your career, or even going back further to your younger years in high school or college? Was there anything that sparked your interest in being able to speak about something that you were passionate about? We would love to hear the story.
Well, it starts with me being an introvert. I am a natural introvert. The idea of me speaking in front of a group of people, let alone getting paid to speak in front of a group of people, if you had asked me that when I was in high school or even at university, nothing could be further from my imagination at the time. So what brought me to that, right? What helped me, bridge the gap between where I was and facing probably what most people fear more than dying, right? Mm-hmm. Speaking in front of groups of people. And that was a passion. You nailed it, really. I suppose that's true, a common experience for a lot of people. Starting an agency focused on providing marketing services to technology companies in 2001 was a very interesting thing to do because the dot-com bubble had just burst and most folks were pulling in their budgets. So with very few resources, had to find a way to attract and engage and bring on new business outside of our Rolodex. And I found blogging as an experiment later on, that was in 2003 when I started, to be effective. But the real world interactions were something that I really wanted to dig into. I'd been a corporate trainer, so small groups of people doing technical training or whatever. As a senior in college, I had a full-time job finishing off my senior year in college at the same time. So I had some exposure in front of groups of people. It still wasn't a comfortable thing. But once our agency started doing really interesting and different things like integrating SEO and public relations. No one was doing that in 2001. And starting to solve really difficult problems, really got excited about telling those stories. And so as a conference attendee, an event attendee, I started looking at folks up there on stage going, I think I could do that. It's going to scare me because I don't want to look like a fool. But I think I can contribute something. And so some folks gave me a chance. Some folks in the search industry just didn't. And to this day, there's no chance I'll ever speak at their conference, which is funny. But there are some folks that gave me an opportunity to go up there and fail and look horrible, but I got over it. And I started to, take advantage of more and more and more opportunities, and eventually grew a name for myself. People could find me easily for the things that I had subject matter expertise for. People talked about it on the social web. And of course now, actually, it's always been inbound. So I just put up a couple of weeks ago a page that lists endorsements people have given me for speaking. I have no speaker page per se. Everything is inbound. I'm going to fix that this year finally. But that's my story, is talking passionately about something that I was really excited about, wanting to tell stories about things that this really great group of people that are part of our agency have been able to accomplish, and also about the companies that we're working with and how they solve some of their problems, that sort of stuff.
Interesting. Well, I've got a comment and then a follow-up question for you. The first thing is the comment where I would say, I think that this is really important to just pause and take a moment to reflect on, is that you said that you're an introvert. And so many of the guests that I have on the show that are very well-known keynote speakers, like yourself, who do a lot of events and speak in front of very large groups, they all have this common thing where in everyday life, they're an introvert. And for those who are just looking to start, increasing their area of expertise or their craft when it comes to public speaking, this is something that if you're scared, you're intimidated to get up in front of an audience, you're not alone. There's many that have gone before you that really have had, that inclination to really not be in the spotlight, but to rather, sit at the back of the room. But yet, when you tap into that passion and that knowledge that you have that you just want to share with everybody else, then you're able to really let your true nature out and share that with people at key times. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be the life of the party all the time. But in that moment when you're asked to speak and you're given authority to present in front of the audience, you've got it. So that is great.
Absolutely.
Now, the follow-up question for you, Lee, is as somebody who kind of started as a very specific type of subject matter expert versus a generalist, I know that there's a lot of folks who work in business or different industries that they go to their industry conferences and they're usually presenting in breakout sessions. Is there any insight that you can share into making that transition from doing breakout sessions as an expert to sharing that knowledge on a bigger stage in a keynote setting? Right.
Well, to be a thought leader, you've got to think, and you have to have original thought. You really need to be introducing ideas in a provocative and compelling way that makes people think and that can inspire them. Keynotes are for inspiration. If you can wrap some education with that inspiration as well, that's great. But for the most part, organizations looking for a keynote are looking for a performance.
Yeah.
And so a lot of subject matter experts are technically accurate and very informative. They're educational in the nature of what they're introducing. That's the expectation for a breakout. But a keynote is indeed a performance, and you've got to bring that part of it. You've got to bring that inspiration, the storytelling, the simplicity of ideas, but yet being provocative and being able to really connect with who the audience is specifically in order to attract those types of engagements.
Beautiful. Well said. So we talked obviously a little bit about maybe this inherent struggle that you had as somebody who is naturally introverted. But I wanted to ask, in those early days when you were starting and kind of struggling and learning, is there anything specific that you could share as to a particular struggle that was difficult for you to overcome?
Practice, really practice. It's funny. Part of my answer is related to how I came up with the name Optimize for my book. So being involved in the conference circuit or whatever, on panels mostly, a friend of mine who works for Google named Miley Oye, who started speaking not long after I did, I noticed that she had really improved. I mean, every time I saw her, she got better and better and better. And she was so polished. And I mentioned to her, wow, that was fantastic. I mean, well done. And I reflected on myself in a very depreciating way. I was like, you know what? I just get up there and I hack it out. I'm horrible. But you know what? They forgive me because I'm passionate. Right. And she said, Lee, you optimize websites and pages and content for better performance, don't you? I'm like, yeah. She goes, why don't you optimize your speaking skills? And it was like, wow. Yeah. So not only did I get some good advice from her, but actually it was the genesis of the idea of, well, what about optimize as a continuous effort to improve performance? And that's the nature of my book. It's not just about SEO. It's about optimizing marketing performance. But back to speaking, overcoming the hurdle was very much related to this notion of practice and practicing in front of my team, practicing in front of a camera. And it's something I still need to spend more time doing. Yeah. I'm just someone who's very excited about what I talk about. And I'm still given a lot of forgiveness from my audiences for that. But practice is definitely important and very instrumental at overcoming those kinds of hurdles.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I know in past conversations with other guests, we've talked about this very notion to where it's almost like there's two messages here. First is, if you're just getting started, tapping into your passion and really being truly interested in what it is that you're talking about is kind of the first step that gets you out there and gets you comfortable, or at least comfortable enough to share that information. And then when you're ready to take it to the next level, then it's all about optimizing, like you're talking about, and being able to really dial in the specifics of how your delivery is and when you make certain points and how you use things like vocal intonation and modulation and all of those things that really just help with an additional amount of finesse that helps you deliver a message clearly and concisely to an audience in a way that gets them where they're sitting on the edge of their seats wanting to hear what you have to share.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the second message for those who are like, okay, I'm comfortable being on stage or being in front of a group. Now I want to take it up, to the next level beyond where I'm at. It's all about practice, practice, practice.
One thing I would add is tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
If when you're first getting going, if you can find a couple of stories to tell, you'll get lost in telling the story.
Yeah.
The story's more interesting to hear from an audience standpoint, and it's a way that you can articulate very interesting, compelling ideas in an entertaining way without having to over obsess about a lot of the specifics that you can pay more attention to later.
Yeah. So good. All right. Well, now I want to talk about your unique perspective and kind of your area of expertise and how that relates to public speaking. You've already given us some really great gems and insights. But I want to ask, for somebody who speaks on the topic of SEO and content marketing and even social media, and there may be people in the audience that are like, I have no idea what you just said. SEO, I don't know what that is. But these are topics that they can, for some people or their general audience, might be very boring or dry. But yet you deliver, this expertise in a way that's very compelling. And I'm really curious, how do you combat that of, the topics or the material being a little bit dry, but creating them as memorable presentations that inspire others to take action?
Well, the first thing is empathizing with who the audience is and finding out if you can, from the event, who's going to be attending this presentation. What's the demographic or from a work standpoint? How is it? What is the background of the audience, clearly, but also what's been promised in the marketing materials to make sure there's some congruence between that. That's oftentimes a big deal, disconnect between what the speaker's going to give and how the session or presentation has been marketed. But pulling back to 30,000 feet and giving people context for why this is important to solve important business problems, right? Yep. So from a SEO standpoint, I don't talk about SEO the same way I used to. In fact, I don't talk about any of this stuff the same way I used to. It's continuously evolving. And the integrated message is also very important. So kind of like I said before, when I'm at a PR conference, I'm speaking PR, but I'm talking about I'm a marketing guy at a PR conference, right? So so that empathy with the audience is very important, and anticipating how they're going to think about the subject matter and what problems do they need solved by this subject matter is something I'm going to take into account in order to provide a more relevant presentation, to provide more relevant examples to them, So that's a big part of it, is empathy with the audience in terms of it being interesting. The story thing comes into play as well. Here's a problem I had. I failed this way, but here's how we overcame it. And here are the results that we got. That will never go out of style. Mm-hmm. So I think those are a couple of things. Besides tying it back to bigger business problems that are solved and where it fits in the mix, are probably pretty key to the answer to that question. The other thing is, don't try to make any one thing be the silver bullet. Because you know what? It's not. There's so many ways to solve marketing problems, and they're very unique according to the situation and resources and the competition that a particular company is experiencing. So what you can do is say, look, here's what's worked. Here's some things that tend to work. Here's some things you can think about. And here's a reasonable plan of attack or approach. And, get back to me with other questions, or, tell me about how it went when you actually implemented these things. Excuse me. That's usually going to strike a little higher with the interestingness score.
Great. Well, I know, I've seen you deliver a keynote, and the thing that I really admire is that you're able to take a lot of those strategic type nuggets of information and then break them down into something that's very practical, techniques, tips, tactics, what have you, to where literally you look around the room and people are, feverishly writing in their notepads or typing on their tablets or whatever, because you really uncover some great things that are something that somebody can leave that conference or that event and go put into action right away. So my question to you on this is, when you're preparing your material, and maybe it's different for each of the different types of situations that you're speaking in, but can you walk us through really quickly how you go from providing great strategy or concepts to then breaking it down into further little nuggets where it's tips and tricks?
Absolutely. Well, there's a reason for that, and that is to inspire social sharing. It is also to inspire consumption, easier consumption. So there are essential points that I'll have identified that I'd like to make in a presentation. And then I'll think of derivatives, examples, and that sort of thing to actually flush it out. What examples, stories, and data points, statistics, quotes, very tweetable quotes can I include to make my point? When you're providing a lot of information, it's really important to provide some breakup. Big visuals and, as I mentioned, tweetable quotes are good not only for the simplicity and absorption of the information, but everyone's got one of these with them, and this is a very powerful publishing device, anytime, real time. So I think any speaker would be negligent in not taking into account the empowerment to publish of people in the audience. And it's very important to be intentionally provide nuggets that can be easily understood and shared, because that extends the audience, of course, to thousands and thousands of people that aren't even in the room with you at that moment. Yeah.
Great.
That's the process that I take, basically, breaking it down and empathizing with shareability interests of the audience.
Fantastic. Well, Lee, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come right back and finish up with our rapid fire Q&A. Research in 2009 by Pablo Bernal revealed that by simply taking a posture of confidence, people feel more confident. Now there's a device that can help you with this. It's called LumoLift, and I've already pre-ordered mine. If you'd like to boost your confidence when speaking in public through better posture, check out whatthespeak.com/lift to watch the video and grab one for yourself. So Lee, let's wrap up with the rapid fire Q&A portion of our discussion, and just give us the first thing that comes to mind, and we'll move on to the next question. The first thing is, do you consider yourself a slide or no slide kind of guy?
For most conference situations, I like to illustrate what I'm talking about with slides, with examples, big visuals, right? Mm-hmm. They are the window dressing to the things I'm saying. And I find myself to be more impactful that way. But there are many other smaller group situations where there's no slides.
Okay, good. Now, is there one speaker out there, maybe right now, or somebody in the past that you admire the most, and why?
Just one?
One.
No. I mean, so I say no because there's multiple. I mean, there's some up and coming speakers that there's one fellow named Marcus Sheridan who has really done a great job at using speaking and blogging to really grow his business. I mean, he was a pool guy, and now he's has a media a consulting agency. Yeah. Marcus gets in your face, and you either like that or you don't. And when you like it, it's a fantastic experience. But he really engages the audience. He tells it like it is. He tells it from experience, a kind of a no BS sort of speaker, but yet it's also very much a performance. So I'd say Marcus is a great example of someone who's really coming up. You're going to see him doing a lot more keynotes and that sort of thing in the future, I think.
Yeah, we've had him on the show not too long ago, and he's quite a powerhouse. All right. So what's the craziest, silliest, maybe the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to you when you've been in front of an audience?
Well, of course, this happened at a search conference. There's a fellow who runs Webmaster Radio named Darren Babin who showed up in a bathrobe to our panel. And so he comes walking with his bathrobe and he shares his knowledge about podcasting, of which he has lots. Yeah. And then he shows a video of Chippendale dancers dancing with the heads of the co-panelists superimposed over the Chippendale bodies, including Rebecca Lieb, who's with Ultimator Group now. Yeah. That was probably one of the craziest things I think that I've seen.
Was that like totally random, or did you know in advance that was going to happen?
I knew he was going to do something, but I didn't know he was going to do that.
That's funny. Okay. So obviously we've touched upon this a little bit, but I always like to dig in this a little bit more. How big of an impact has speaking and more importantly, your ability to speak had on your career and your business?
Public speaking has expanded our business beyond my wildest dreams. I've been able to give presentations in Hong Kong, London, obviously in the US, New York to San Francisco. I just did 2 events in Madrid and then Moscow. I'm going to be going to Saudi Arabia in a couple of months. I'm going to London in a couple of weeks. Yeah. I love to travel, and it's amazing. And the other thing is 100% of our new business is inbound. 100%. I have no salespeople. We don't do advertising. So it's between creating content and in public speaking that people learn about who we are, what we do, and they pick up a phone and say, hey, are you available?
Yeah. Great. Well, Lee, last question is for somebody who's just starting out and all the lessons that you've learned over the years that you've been speaking, what's one thing that you would share with them right now to encourage them or help them get started?
I would identify one specific thing that you stand for, right? What's that one very specific thing that really epitomizes the core of the value that you can deliver? And focus first on that one thing. Be the best answer, no matter what direction you come at that one idea, that one concept, and really, really make that real in all that you do. Because when you're specific, you're going to stand out. And you'll create your own gravity because other people, as you articulate what that vision, that specificity is about you, they will come to your aid. And people that don't even know you will gravitate towards you. And then as you gain some dominance or some authority in that one thing, then you can start to duplicate amongst other topics and really grow your empire for how it is that you are known in your industry. That's what I would do.
Brilliant. Well, Lee, I want to thank you so much. We're going to have links to your website, your social media accounts, and any other resources such as your book, Optimize, over in the show notes at whattospeak.com. And just again, thank you for your time and for sincerely sharing your personal story and all the great things, all the great lessons that you've learned along the way. You truly are somebody who kicks ass when they speak, present, or pitch.
I really appreciate you saying that, Brian. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you again. If you liked what today's guest had to share in our discussion, you may want to grab an audio copy of their latest book for free by going to WTSaudiobook.com. That's WTSaudiobook.com.
All right. Here we go with the outro.
Thanks so much for joining us today on What to Speak. Be sure to visit whattospeak.com for show notes on every episode and to sign up for our email list to stay updated on resources that'll help you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch.